Hi everybody, this is Yubi from Dimension, and welcome to a series application development for startups, new features or other sort of software ideas. Today we are talking about requirements. And before I start, I would like to point out, like every time, write everything down, because all items that you feel will define now will be needed in the next step. So it's not important if you use a book, use Excel, use PowerPoint, use Trello, write it down, everything you do, because in this case you will avoid to do work twice, and it will make things much more easier for you to track it and to use it in the next steps. So today I will focus and use PowerPoint and show it for the requirements development. So like I stated out in the first video, we're working and trying to give you I try to give you like an idea how, when you have a good idea, how you can get to the software business. In the beginning it seems like a really long way to come from the idea to the software business, but if you slice it up in little steps and go step by step, you will see how easy it is to really develop your idea to a concept, to requirements, and then to software and to a business, and so start perhaps a really good new application. So like I said, today we're talking about requirements. So we'll see what are requirements and why do we need them, what are the elements that are important, and like always I will go with our example frame style. Like I said it in the last videos, I had this idea to have like a wireframe tool, to not draw the wireframes anymore in PowerPoint or on paper, but to have a digital tool to drive my wireframes. And based on this idea, we have evaluated my idea, we have made a concept about this idea, and today we will see how to write requirements based also on this example. So what are requirements? Requirements are in principle defined to brief developers so they can understand your app 100%. Because like I said, in the beginning we had the concept, we have like the processes, in the basic processes, we have the functionalities, we have the USPs and so on, and all this gives you a really good idea of your application, how it should be in the future. But you have to challenge a little some problems. Problem one is, if you only explain this idea to the developers, you will forget a lot and only get perhaps 50% of that what you want. If you do not write it down, you will also you're also not able to explain 100% what is your imagination, and so you perhaps will get something different that you want. So writing it down, making a requirement, writing your idea down to a requirement paper will help you to really draw and draw your idea and really put it to the paper, so you can explain better and picture what you really want to do. And the last problem is, even if they build something and they build something different, you will always have a documentation as an evidence. So if you don't do it, if you only take your idea, explain it to somebody and expect that they are building you something, they will always say afterwards, but I understood it different and where it's written. So if you have like a requirement, you can first be sure that you have everything that you need in this requirement document. You are much more better to picture your idea, and you have evidence afterwards to compare what is delivered and what you wanted, so you have an evidence. So these are the things that you don't want only to imagine and describe something to a developer, but really put it down. And for this we need requirements. So the requirements have like two parts, like mockups or wireframes, and they have descriptions. And the most important thing is that everything is written down in any form so that you can give it to somebody, and based on this really define what is the next step, what is to be built. So why do we need mockups and descriptions for the requirements? So first, the descriptions. So you have to think about it like it's what, how, and when to build it. It's more the description, what, how, and when to build it. And if you imagine like a really easy example, like you want to build a house, so you have to describe every element of this house. You have a roof, what for is the roof, how big is it, how expensive should it be, how's the weight, the walls, the doors, the windows. For example, do we want US windows or European windows? So you can see this is a description of every element to understand, to give to brief the developer to know what elements to build. And also, and this is important, you need mockups, wireframes, because it's more like the question where to build it. I mean, even if you have described them, you have to put them together. So in this example, you can see it's a difference if you take all these elements and put the window on the right side or the left side. But also, the mockups are also alone not sufficient enough, because what is this window? Is a US or a European window type? So you can see a requirement requires description and wireframes. So for who is the target? Who is the target for the requirement? So in the first case, it's you. You are the first one that is the target of the requirements, because it helps you also to improve your application, but also your team members. So it's not important if you're working alone or you're working with a team. This will help you finalize your idea. It will help you, give you a good feeling, because it's like a motivation. Like I said, step by step by step. In the beginning, we have this idea. And when you start to develop the concept, you get like a more of a motivation, because you think, okay, now I understand my my idea much more better. But if you have the requirements and really say this is something, a blueprint that somebody could tomorrow really really build, then it's like also driving you a better motivation to do the next step and let it build and make the next steps. And also it will give you an opportunity to challenge your idea. I mean, if you before the requirements or the requirements document, you are only able to prove and challenge your idea, and somebody could say, oh, it's a good idea or a bad idea. But if you give them also a requirements document, you can not only challenge the idea but also the quality of your idea. Like, is the application like good? Are there some flows? Are there some that are not understandable? Are there some processes not understandable? Are there some features not understandable? And you can challenge it. So you can see how important it's not only for other people but also for you to have this requirements document. But the most important case for the developers, because it's the brief. With this you can brief them properly, avoiding misunderstanding about the abilities. That's the most important thing. You can really picture your thing, give it to somebody, and with them, with this document, discuss what is to be built. You can get on, based on this, a first estimation, and as much better the requirements document is, as much better much more better the estimation will be, and you will know what the real costs that you have to face to build your application. And also the developers will be able to give you a first implementation plan to say, these are the path that I want to go to build your app. So I start with this feature A, B, C, D, and we will finish after 3 months or 2 months. And in the first 2 weeks, you will get this, this, and this. And so you have a plan what you can expect if you have these requirements with much more better. So also then it's interesting for investors, because you can give them an overview and inspire them, especially when you don't want to start to buy something before you have the money. So you will need a requirement document, give it to the investors, and this will help you to inspire them, but it also to give them an outlook to what will come if you build like some prototype and you want additional money, and you will want to say, this additional money I will give you an outlook what I will build, adding to my first MVP, what I can add, and give them an outlook. So you can see how important this is. So what are the content of requirements document? So in the first step is the screen and element description. Like, you describe really every element of the screen. Like, this is screen 1, and screen 1 you can see like perhaps a start screen or account screen or login screen, and then you describe also every button. Button 1, button 2, what is the button doing, what for, what is reacting to. But there are also flows. So not only like screens and elements, but you also want to describe which is the flow of a process. So like, if you want to make an account, you have to go to screen 1 and click on button 1, then you have to go to screen 2 and click on button 2, and so on, and describe flows to understand what the user can do. Also, you have some data description, because if you have fields, it's not enough to say this like a name field. somebody has to enter his name, but also to define, is it a text field, number field, how many digits, and so on. This also will help the developers to develop it. A lot of errors in the beginning are that the fields are not specified enough, and for example, you say I want some fields, some entering field for notes, and somebody gives you makes it for 50 characters, but you needed 2000 characters. So you can see how you can avoid this by really good data description. Is it a drop down? What are the values of the drop down, and so on. And also what is important are interfaces, because you will have a lot of applications where you're dealing with two systems, and these two systems have to share some data, and then you have to define what are the data that are shared, what is the transfer, how it's going on, and so on. But this is basically all the four dimensions that you have to keep in mind if you want to define your application, like defining screen and buttons, describing flows, describing data in more detail, and describing interfaces. So what tools can you use to describe them? Let's start with the mockups. Mockups is important that you arrange your functionalities. So what you want is something to draw, and you can draw it in PowerPoint. You can draw it using like tools like Paint. You can draw things like papers or other mockup wireframe tools that are already on the market. And the main goal is to have some pictures to see how the application will look like in the future, and what buttons are there and how to click them. And also you want a description, and this can be in Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Trello, Jira. It's not important in which, but like describing in words what the functionality is for, what you can do with them, what is needed, and how to use it. And the most important things is all requirements must have both together in one document. And it's really important that you have the mockup and the description together. So if somebody is reading, it's not good to have first the mockups and then later the description. The people will get lost. So keep them together, mockups and description together, so that the third party can read it, and understand the whole application. It's really, really important. So what are really the elements you have to put in your concept? So first you have to add some context. Context is like business in a nutshell, and benefits. I will now come to it why it's important. Then you have really the application description. So this is entities, like elements you will need in this thing, processes, and you come, oh my god, processes again. But till now we've only like started to describe 50% of the major processes, but here we have to finish it up and do 100% of all the processes must be defined. So you have to come in there. Then after the processes, we'll see how you will cover the processes with the screens. So in which screens you will deal with which processes. After the screens, then you will really go in every screen and think about the mockups, the wireframes, and the data, and in the second part about the user flows that are necessary to do those things. And in the end, you will have additional features also with mockups and user flows. Why are these additional features important? Because you will have some features that are not main important in a screen, perhaps like something like search or filter. You want to describe them, but not in this part, because it's too much, or it's not fitting therein. So you will make an extra chapter to also add features and also describe them in the end. After this, when you described all the features, all the processes with screens and mockups and flows, then you start with the interface specification. You know which interfaces you have, how to deal with them, and then you also finish everything by giving some performance indication, how quick something has to be, how it has to work, and then you define in the last chapter some test cases. What is nice, you can see that a lot of the things at the beginning you can take from the concept. So business in a nutshell, entities, process, they're all things that you have on a high level thing in your concept. You can use it and only like a little bit change it, make it more compact, so you can deliver it. And then this is only the detail work that you have to do. And like I said, you see the benefit if you already started in the concept and an idea evaluation to write everything down, because now you can reuse it in its detail work. And if you're finished with everything, don't forget every time to compare everything you do in the requirements with your concept, because check it, are the goals, is the requirement document really helping you to achieve your goals, your customers, your benefits, your USPs, and only if you say yes, everything from my concept that I figured out is really good described now in the requirements document, then you have done a really good job. So let's start with the context, business in a nutshell, and benefits. And only I want to say, why is it important to draw the whole picture, to give the developers some context. You want to give your team the whole picture, because giving the developer context means to enable them to define the spots you missed to describe sufficient, because you cannot define everything. You cannot define it. Even if you try, you will perhaps succeed to do 80%, 95%, but never 100%. And even if you try, it costs you perhaps too much. I mean, instead of describing everything 80% and then using the rest to the context, giving the developers the freedom, and go perhaps on the next step like acquisition and something different, and not like trying to invest additional 20 days in making it 100%, you can use the time to make something different and much more important. And also we'll get better solutions, because what is important is like, even if you have a concept and think, let's do the login like in this case, the developers in most case more experienced, and they will say perhaps with knowledge with the context, I will say that perhaps another solution is better than that solution that you're proposing. So let's take an example again. You want to build this house, and what is happening? You forgot to define the size of the door. You said, build me a house, I want a door, it opens to the left, but in the end you forgot to say what's the size. So imagine that the developers assume that this is a house for a family and they're planning so unusual family door for a family house, but instead this house is not a house but a warehouse. So you need a big garage entry. And so you can see, if you had given the people, the developers, the information, the house builders, this is a warehouse, they would automatically, even if you did not have defined the size of the door, understand that this has to be a door for a track and not a door for a family. You can see the difference. And also, if you gave them the context, perhaps you have defined such a roof, but they are saying perhaps another type of roof is for a warehouse, much better than using this type of roof. You can see it's a lot of advantages if you really give the people a little bit more context. And it's not have to be much, because like, put your idea in a nutshell, tell them what is the core idea, tell them what are the customers you want to trigger, and tell them what is the business model, and give them this information. It would help a lot. And you can see it like it will help. And in the end, give them also the benefits you want to achieve, the USPs, so they understand what's the main thing you have to focus, and in which areas they have to perhaps ask you one time more, because it's important, because one time less. So if I start with my wireframe example, frame style. So what is the idea? The idea in a nutshell. The idea in a nutshell is really take all the basic features of a wireframe tool that you always have in the market, but build an easy digital wireframe tool that fits semi-professional users, like they do here, based on existing functionalities, but adding additional functionalities and including those which are not needed. So I give here an idea to understand, yeah, I want a digital wireframe tool, yeah, but I don't want to invent the wheel new, but I only want to take the things that are important for me, exclude some things, and add some additional information that others do not have, and do this. So what are the customers? My customers, hobby entrepreneurs, hobby developers, then IT students, and it's based on advertising. So a wireframe tool to draw wireframes with some ads, and the most important thing is free and no registration, secure saving on PC, drawing, upload of templates, usage of templates. You can see, even with this basic information, a developer would understand what to build. He would go there, check what are important elements, functionalities they have to have. I have to add some ads, and it has to be no registration, free saving, and so on. And even if I do not really make good requirements, this context will help him a lot to think about the features and to build some application that's much more nearer to my imagination than it would be if I only give them the requirements without this background. So after we have the context, now let's start really with the application and the entity. So what is an entity? Everything that is managed in the application. So it's a little bit hard to do it. It's more like an object. The terminology is not so easy, because I'm not talking about elements or objects that are used for the developers in their language, but everything that must be managed. And everything that must be managed can be user groups, admins, users. There are user with full rights and user with perhaps less rights, few rights only. There are service providers, advertisers, different user groups that will use your application. Every of these user group is an element that has to be perhaps treated different, because an admin has more attributes than a user with no rights. You can see that. But are also objects. Objects that are substantial part of the process you must think of them. Functionalities can be entities, not functionalities like a button. I don't want you to write here down all the buttons you need, but more like the assumption, like functionalities that contributed as an element to the process. That's really important. And some input output like upload information, data from interface, manual input, downloads, and so all information. I want to make a little small example to explain it better before I go to Framestar. And it's like an online shop. Think of an online shop. So what are the entities? All the entities you have to think of your online shop. So the first thing, the user groups. They're shop admin, somebody who has to manage all the products and the prices. They're the customers who want to buy those products, and they're affiliates that are working with you together in this application to give you traffic so you can sell your things. These are the three entities you have to think of. You have also like objects. You have products, credit card, bank account, price, and you can see how it's not so clear if something is really only an attribute or an entity. For example, you can say product, but a product has a price, so it's more like an attribute of a product. But I could also state no, price can also be an entity, because prices can change. So for example, a price can be in January different, but different or be different in August. So if it's changing, it's more complex. It's more like a complex entity. It can be different for different customer groups. So you can see that a price can also be in this online shop our own entity that has own attributes itself. So what are functionalities that are entities? In this example, you can think of the basket. So you have to think of the basket, how it's reacting with working with products, prices, credit cards, and on how you deal with it. It's an own entity you have to think about, have its own process. And other things are like input output factors, credit card information, or confirmation email. So everything are some kind of entity that is part of a process, that needs a process, and that needs our own an own implementation of the developers, so that you can manage them and you can change them, and you know that they will function in your online shop. So, and the most important is every entity must be described in the requirements in forms of a screen and a flow. So this is important, because if you thought of all the things you have, all the entities you have in your application, everything must be described. And so it's really important to start with this, not start with the application, because the problem is if you start with the application and start with the mockups and the wireframes for the online shop, perhaps you will forget the basket, and then after one day you will check, oh my god, I forgot the basket, and then you try to put it in the already drawn mockups, and this could lead to the situation that you're perhaps overloading your existing wireframes. So start with it. Think of every entity you need, because if you've done so, you can describe and check is every process and every feature really covering all the entities. Do I have my credit card screens? Do I have my credit card workflow? Do I have my basket? And so on and so on. So if I take, for example, Framestar, what user groups do I have? I have the normal user that's managing projects and managing viewers. I have the viewer public. So some user can only see projects, but not change them. So for example, if I have a user and managing a project and then sharing this URL to other viewer, this other viewer can only check them, but not change them. So you can see there's a difference. There will be advertising. I will use adverts, so I also have to think how to get it in application. My objects are projects, so all the sum of all wireframes. I have elements that are part of the sites and the wireframes. I have drawn elements, single elements, multiple select elements, all entities that have their own attributes and function different. I have to describe them and check how to deal with them in the whole application. other functionalities like account, library, info site, and also input output like the secure code that has been downloaded and uploaded to change the password because I do not have an email address or something like that. You can see these are all my objects, and every object I must describe properly in a screen, in a function, in a process. But also all the entities have also attributes, so every entity can have different attributes. In our example with the online shop, a user has an ID, a user has a name, a surname, an email, a password. And you can see how it's important because every of these attributes you define here will be later a field in your wireframe. You have to put it somewhere in your application so somebody can enter the name and the surname. And you see the mistake I already made. Because I will now draw my mockups, and later I will check it in my head and think about the process and see, okay, but when I want to sell a product to a user and he gave my name and surname, email, and I want to send the product to him, where's the address? So you can see I did not mention the address, so I will not put it in the wireframe, and so I have now to go back and change my wireframe. But while I'm here, I have time, I can add the address, I can add all the fields, and then later draw my wireframes with less errors and less mistakes. Let's also talk about the basket. Here, for example, a basket has different product IDs, has a different date when it's set up, has a value, has perhaps a status like in the beginning, like saved, like paid, and so on and so on. You can see there are different attributes to every entity, and it's really important because every entity will have different attributes, and you have to think of every attribute where to place it in your application, in your wireframes. So in my example, I don't have any user data, so there have no attributes, but I have account data, room data. Every account has a ID, every account has multiple project IDs, every account has a status like perhaps cancelled, closed, deleted. Every account has a date, secure code, password. Every project has different attributes, and elements have has different attributes. And you can see, for example, a project can also have a date, but here also, if I do not think good enough about it, you will see date is one date enough, because what I mean, a project can have a setup date, but it also can have a date for a change. One was the last change. So if I want to have two dates, I have to specify there's a setup date and there is a date for change, and also I have to put in this information also in some case in the wireframes if I want to see them anywhere. So you can see how it really helps to first define the entities, then define the attributes of the entities, and then to go and think where to place all the things in your wireframes. So the next thing we have to do is also we have to think about the relations between all the entities, because these are more the rules is what can one entity do in connection with the other entity. It's a really important thing, especially for the database. So you have like a really easy relation is a entity 1 to entity 2 is a one-to-one relation, and it's a really easy example. So for example, if application, one user can only have one email, and this is the one user can have only one email, but also one email can have only one user. So you can see this are definitions. So if you define it like this, every developer will know we will have to build a check, because if somebody else is trying to register for your application and using the same email, it's not going to work, because every email can has only one user. But also if you have one email and you want to have perhaps another user for this email, it's also not possible. So you can see how you define. But in other ways you can also define that one user can have multiple emails. So what is in this case? In this case you have entity 1 has entity 2 and a 1 to n relation, because you can say, for example, one user can have multiple bank accounts in my online shop. You can have a credit card, bank account 1, bank account 2, bank account 3. But also that only one user can have multiple accounts. But also one account can have only one user. So you can see, you can switch it like you want. It's not important in which order you do it, but it's always to remember how to read it. So user n bank accounts. So one user can have n bank accounts, multiple bank accounts, but one bank account can have only one user. So you read it always like this: one user, n bank accounts, one account, one user. So, but you can also have, and as the last possibility, n entity and n entity. So how you read it is like, in this case, one shopping list can have multiple products, n products, and also one product can have n multiple shopping lists. So one product can appear in multiple shopping lists of your customer, but also one shopping list can have multiple products. So you can see it's an n relation, and this defining helps a lot to build the things. And when we go back to the frame star example, you can see I said I have an account and I have also projects. And what I'm saying, an account can have projects, and a project is a part of an account. But what I'm stating is that one account can have multiple projects. But this is important. I state that one project can only be part of one account. And you can see it's a difference for the developer how to develop it. Because I could also say, but I want that one project is part of many accounts. So what you have to build then is an account structure and wireframes that enable that one project is shared among multiple accounts. But I'm not defining it as such. I'm defining one project can have only one account. So one account, you can have multiple projects, but one project is always part of only one account. So you have all screens like this. You have like account to screens. You have templates, and now I can define everything. And here is a really good example about elements. So you can say one screen have multiple elements. Logic. I can have a wireframe screen. A screen have like a wireframe for a menu and so on. But also one element like the wireframe menu can also be in multiple screens. So this is a classical end-to-end relationship between two entities. So after this, we are now trying to go to the process, and like I said, you may say, "Oh my God, processes! We figure it out like we always already done it in the concept." But that's not enough. In the process, in the concept, we focused on the perhaps 20, 30, 40% of the major processes. But here we want to cover all processes because this is really important. Because that your application works, you have to cover all processes. I mean, if you have, for example, a weather app, a app that shows you the weather in your area. So it's not only important to have like a screen and see a map and the weather, but perhaps you also need something to log in and log out, and you have also to describe this, that the developer knows what to build. So you can see we are now focusing on all, not only the most important things, but also all necessary processes that have to be built. And what you're doing, you're coming from the process and going to the screens. And a lot of people making the mistakes and going from the screens and trying to capture the processes. I mean, there will be some feedback and changing all the time, but always you come from the process, because what is the thing you want to achieve? Because what you don't want is to have something like this. You have like defined two screens, and then when you click it, the user is clicking on screen 1, then clicking on screen 2, clicking on a pop-up, clicking on a pop-up, and coming back to screen 1. So you don't want that one process has a lot of jumping. You want less jumping and less clicking. So if you have something to do, a process that has to involve multiple screens, what you really want is like perhaps that the user is first doing everything in screen 1 and then finishing in screen 2. And you can see that there's a much more pleasant workflow, but to jumping in between two screens. So you can see how to understand what is the process you want to put in an app, and how is the best way to really have a good flow with less jumping, less clicking, to have a really good user experience. And only to go on in the process, because you will always have a trade-off in building the screens. The trade-off is between putting everything on one screen. Then you will have the advantages. You have everything. You have less clicking. You have less jumping. But you have it's a lot of information. So the user can get lost. And the other extreme is like doing every information on one screen. So the user will really easy get to understand what's what's in screen 1 and screen 2, but it's a lot of jumping, a lot of clicking and switching between the screens. And everybody is doing it different, because think of a registration process. A lot of people put the registration on one screen. So they say, okay, I don't want to lose people jumping between screens, so I put every registration on one screen. You can see it, do it. Other people say, I have so much information, and perhaps I'm scaring the user with, if I'm giving him like 30 things to fill out in a registration, so I'm splitting it in 2 or 3 steps in screens, 1, 2, 3 screens, so that's less annoying in the beginning. So he starts first with the major information, then with the next information, and then in the last step with the last information. And so I'm trying to get a better mix of not all in one, but not too many things, and that's the trade-off you have to think of also. So what are the major tips I have to give you if you think about the process? Every entity must be part of a process. So check the entities, take the entities, see if you have one entity and you have not described a process that helps you to achieve this entity, to change it or something, you're missing something. Use the processes from the concept and define it more in detail. So use already the work you have done, put it in, and try to get more in detail. Order the process now so that you have a storyline. So when we started with the concept, I said, think of the process as not, you can do it arbitrarily. So start with the main, start with the last, only try to figure out what is important to put it in. Here now, try really to make a story and think of what is the first encounter of the user, what is the second, what is the third, and try to really make an order from the beginning to the last. It will really help you to figure out what processes you really have to do. And don't fear that perhaps in some cases there are processes that can be parallel. It's not a problem. Even if they're parallel, think of, okay, even if it's parallel, but I'm still starting with this and then this process, because a user cannot do both. So it will help you a lot to really get the whole picture, and repeat it 3 or 4 times with different user roles to not forget the process. It's really important, because I will comfort you, it's not possible in the first time to get all the steps, but you will start with one process, then get another process, then go deep in and put on the tasks and the sub processes, and so go on and on and on, and then jumping back and seeing, aha, I forgot something here, I forgot perhaps a task in sub process 3, and so we will be able to really go through it. And always try to figure it out, try to step in the role of the user. So the user is starting with the process. What is he seeing? What can the user do? What can the user change? What is the next what the user can change? And if you have different user roles, try to go through the process with every user, and every user role must be able to do everything you imagine. So that's a really good exercise to define everything you need. And remember, if you do not describe the process, it will not be implemented and can lead to an error in your application. So like I said, you're thinking of a weather app, you're describing everything in this app, but you forget to describe that the user has to do a login process. And if you forget to do this, nobody would build it, and then would come in and see, oh my gosh, I forgot to do this. Then you perhaps have to add additional 10 or 20% on the costs that you did not plan in your application. So for the estimates, try to make really a good job to estimate everything good like it should be. So if I take Framestar as an example, so what is the first thing the first thing I think of our user when it's first visiting? So the user will perhaps immediately want to start with the project. So he wants to click on a start button and then open automatically account room without anything in it. That's my process. But also a user can perhaps will click on a YouTube video to have more info about it. The user wants perhaps to open additional information. The user clicks on the help FAQ side, or the user, perhaps not the first visit, but on a second visit, coming back and then trying to upload a secure code on the first site. So this is something perhaps for the first visit and also for the first site. So also open a new account. Perhaps somebody is going on and not clicking on the start to open a project, but rather clicking on a new to open directly a new account and a new room. So also, what is then the next step? If somebody clicked on start, the user will start immediately to manage a site. So the user has to edit a name, change the size of the background, add some sites and so on and go on. And the user will have to manage elements, edit drawing, edit text and so on, everything to manage on the site. But also the user can then come back and perhaps check additional information about, is this really cheap, is it really free, or do you have even to pay something later? And then there are steps later. The user has to manage an account room, log in, delete the account, change a password, download secure kit, manage project and description. So you can see, like I said before, I've gone for every step thinking what is the first thing that the user will do. Open a first site with automatically room and thing. Edit and manage the site, adding some elements and doing it. Going back and checking what are my managed rooms, what are my accounts, saving perhaps something. Manage a project, downloaded the project, and then later add the description. So all the things. And I also checked everything with the entities, and I saw that every entity is here. So if I think about the text entity, yeah, the text entity is here. If I think about the secure code, yeah, the secure code is part of here. So you can download the secure code and upload it here to change your password. So you can see all the informations that I need, all the entities are here given in this process and covered by the process. And with this, now I can think about the screens. And what's important about the screens? So if you think about the screens, here you don't want here to go really in detail and draw the wireframes. What you want is to have our overview. What are the screens that I need in connection, and what are the parts that I will cover of the process? So what you think is like, I need site 1, and with site 1 I will cover this process part, and with site 2 I will cover this process, and also I need to cover one step in this process. I will need a pop-up, and site 3 also. So you can see here, it's like this whole site will cover all this process steps, but the pop-up will cover this step here, and site 3 will have some pop-ups, and site 4. So I know which are all the sites and the pop-ups or additional pages, information that I need to later can go in detail and really place all the buttons in this sites. And also what I want to have an overview is which site is relating to which site. So from site 1 you can come to site 2, you can come to site 3, from site 2 it comes to site 4, and from site 4 to site 3. And like I said, so if you know this, you know that you're not able to come from site 1 to site 4. You don't have to think about building any button, but if you say I want to have connection between 1 and 4, you have to think about later about the wireframe to do it. So you can see it. And for example, let's take frame star. Like I said, I have a start page, and on the start page I need a pop-up to upload the secure code that somebody can change the password. Also I need a project page where somebody can manage all the project, can manage all the sites. So I need to rename it, and I need a pop-up for the name, but everything else it's like on the site directly. So also what I need is a page for account and room, and for this I need also download and save the code, and download upload project. That are some of the pop-ups I need here. You can see like I didn't think it through enough, because I also forget that this account also need a pop-up for changing my password. So you can see, thinking about it helps you to really think of all the screens that you will later need. And like I said, you can then define which account it's working in which way with something else. So in this example, everything will be like this. So in my example, start page, I need only start page, account room, project page, FAQ site, and some pop-ups, and this is the main thing. And now in the next step I would have really to go through and now draw the mockups. And here we are now at the core. Like I said, everybody starting with the wireframes when everybody wants to picture the application. But like I said, with the concept, it's better to begin with a little extra work, because that will help you a lot to think the entities, processes, and then think all the screens that you need, and then start screen by screen by screen to add all the wireframes, mockups and data you need and the user flows. So when I start with the define the wireframes, mockups, there are different screens that I can use. So always, like I said, put description and mockups close together. So in a PowerPoint you can put up, like, here is the mockup, the wireframes, and here the description. You can put the mockup here and the text below to have perhaps some more broad space here, like for if you have need more like high space, or you can put all in one picture and the text on the next slide in some notes or in the Word document. But always think of it, always put keep the combination together, mockup and wireframe, description, all in one spot, so it's much more easier. So you will see that I now, for example, already will use this. So you want to start, and now you defined the entities, the processes, you know which sites you will need with screens, and now you want to describe your first screen, and you're a starter and do not know how to start. How should I picture my wireframe? So what you can do, you can take perhaps an application or a screenshot of application that is already, that you know and that you like and think, oh, it's a really good application, similar. So what you can do, use this and then use this more like a template to overdraw. And like I used here the analytics screen, and what I can already learn is that if I have such a screen that will that I can drag over, that I will need a menu area. So I can drive here, my new application will have a menu area. It will also have some area for logo, user information, navigation setup. It will have some footer and additional setups, and here is the space to enter my functions. I mean, if you use another application, it can be really different. Perhaps only have logo and nothing instead. But you can see how this can really help you, like an application you like, to give you some hints and to give you like a template you can draw over it. So what you can also do is always resize it. So if you here try you made this first step and now you want to add some features and you see there's not a lot of space, don't do it. Make a picture. So the first screen is now describing how the whole screen should look like. Then you copy the whole screen and then you delete all the parts you do not need and only write down the screen looks like screen 1, but I want to focus here on these things, and so I'm enlarging this, and every developer will understand, okay, it's not that in this screen I will lose the footer, but I don't see it because it's not necessary here, and we can focus on the space here to enter the functions. And also I want to state out, so if you've done this, this is like the pre-work. So what we have now is like the first is like a corset. So you have like your boundaries where you can go. Here is the logo, here will the menu, and now you think of the screen. So you know the process, you know the entities, and you know the screen and what it should cover. So what you now do is enter all the buttons, attributes, and everything you think that you will need. So for example, account side, picture, surname, birthday, street, and so on. So you place everything in, all the descriptions. So you take the entities, and you take the processes, and you take the attributes, and everything that should be done in this process step in the screen, you put it in. And then in the next step, you allocate them, resize them, and try to find different designs for every field. So you can see I start with here. This is a headline. So I place the headline here and change the design. So in all my mockups, the design for a headline will be like this. So every developer will always see, aha, this is not a button, this is not a field that I can put in. This is really this is only like a headline. Buttons will be like this. So every button will always be like in this shape and form. Like here you can see save, cancel, and this X. This are buttons that are not fields, that are not displays or some information, that are real buttons. So here is a picture display. You can see it's a different designs or different functionality. Here I have a C button, and then I have different kinds of fields like name, surname, birthday. And you can see from here, if I go back, I put in the first thing all that I had from my entity attributes, from my processes, put all the buttons and fields in, only in, and then I started to structure them, to give them a look like, and to do them like I think it would be the best. And the next step what I do now is, when I have this wireframe, this is the thing how my account data page screen should look like. So what I now do is put everywhere a number, because now I want to describe them, and I do this here. So you can see now, if a developer sees the tries to understand this, the developer understands this is the things, these are the fields, these are the elements I have to put in. This is like a estimation or a suggestion how to organize them. And also here I have a description. S is a setup button. Later put in an icon. U is a user picture and button. You can see I already made a mistake, because if it's a button it has to be this color, so I have to change it later. This is a picture display. These are fields, so I put it in 7, field to enter user data, and also I give additional information like the cancel or the save button. Save appears only if something is changed. So I don't have to do a lot of information, but already the developer understands how to program it. Because if a user sees the screen, the user will not see the buttons. But if a user clicks on it, then and change something, then save and cancel, and everything will appear, and the user can save it. So I've put some information about the workflow, but I also could put in 2 screens. And that's the next thing I want to say. It's like, also before we go to the next thing, it's like the data description, because you can see all these fields. I have to describe them a little bit better, because what is name? Name is a text field with 30 characters, but state is a drop down and has different values. Take from Google interface the values like state Bavaria or Brandenburg or something like that. So you can see it's not enough to draw the fields, but also you have to describe them, give them characters, what text field, number field, drop down, whatever it is, so that their developer later really understands not only how to place them, but what is the function of this field and what are the parameters that he has to follow to understand it. So you will see a lot of the screens will have a lot of variation. How to deal with the variation? For my example, what if you have like state, and what if you select state 3, and if you select state 3 you will get zip code appears, so you have to have additional picture. So in this example state, but another state, it's not the state 3, it's state 1 or state 7 and no zip. But if you have state 3, the screen should look like this, additional zip code. So you already teach the person, the developer, how to where to put it, and do not forget to put the zip code here in. And then you can only focus and describe this, and you can lead all, I mean, you can all say in one sentence here perhaps like all other fields, buttons, entities are described in chart 7, and only focus on this one. So what are how to deal with pop-ups if you want to describe a pop-up? Also you need a different screen, so you copy all this, you put like something, a blank page over it, and then you start with drawing the pop-up. So what does the pop-up look like, how big is it, what are the elements in the pop-up, and you begin to describe all the elements. So this is the drag and drop upload picture area, this is a cancel to close the pop-up, also is this to cancel, this is delete the existing picture button, this is the save button, and you can see everything described. And also like what is the picture, what is the pop-up looking like if you already have uploaded a picture. You can see there are new elements. The element is here, like you can select the frame of a picture, and also here buttons to increase or decrease the size, change the size of the picture. You can see, so every different functionality that is appearing in one side by a pop-up, by a change, by a variation, no matter, you have to draw it. Then it's really a good description. You can see it here, I can throw it. Screen without a pop-up, in the variation with state 3, screen with a pop-up, and screen with the pop-up and uploaded picture. Everything described, so every developer will understand what to do. And it's really a different thing to describe it like this and to say I want only some pictures and to upload it, because a lot of developers, perhaps if they really don't have time or they need really special information, they perhaps forget to make a delete button in it. So you can see how important it is to think of everything and to enter it. So let's take the start for the wireframes for Framestar. How did I start with the start screen? The first what I did is like, okay, think about what is my screen. This is my screen. This is the start screen. Somebody is in a laptop going on my site, and what will see? The first thing, I need an area for imprint help. So the headline. This is my headline. I need a footer. dimension here. And what will be instead? So I need also some arrow or something to click on it to go from the start page to additional information. So this is my area. Like I said, if somebody wants additional information, she or he clicks on this button and goes to the next page. I need something like a description. The user is the first time on the site, and you can see how the process helps you to understand what to build. Because if I only think of a user and didn't thought of the process, perhaps I will only start with the start button or register or login button. But I think, okay, a person is the first time on the screen. What he does not understand what to do. So start a project, define a wireframe, save your project on a PC or on cloud, and that's the thing. If I click start, I can use this wireframe and start it. It's really easy. But also people that are already using my tool are coming back. So they don't want to go to an additional site, they want to come back to this site, and you can see here they can enter room name, enter the password, go on. But also if they forgot the password, I have something to do here in. And some additional information perhaps first on a page. Somebody seeing this, saying, okay, wireframe 2, and then clicking on it and getting a pop-up to understand, aha, YouTube video, how this works and what it's about. And like I said, I draw everything, then I put in the numbers, and in the end I started to describe them. Header with logo, links to imprint, homepage and help site, description how to use it, and so on. And so with this picture and this description, it's much more easier for a developer to understand what to build, and it's less of uncertainty what I will get delivered. So like I said, like to forget the forget password, if you click then you will get a pop-up and then upload your secure code and then change it. So like I said, for this pop-up I have to deal with it. So I have to draw the pop-up. How will the pop-up look like? And here I only drew the pop-up. The pop-up will have like a X to close the pop-up, and it will have also an area here to drag and drop. And also if I uploaded the secure code, I will see my room name, enter a new password and confirm the password and submit or close it. And here is a really important information. Here I can click on X, cancel to go back to upload pop-up. So if I click here, so you can see the same X, the same close button, but when I close here, I close the whole pop-up, go back to the screen. But if I click here, I go back to the first thing and can re-upload perhaps a new code. So you can see the difference between only drawing and describing. So what is now the difference? I have the mockups. Why do I need really user flows? Because like I said, it's not always clear how to use the windows, because there can be one screen can has multiple flows, multiple entities, multiple processes, and only to draw it is not to give a full understanding how to use it. So what you do, like, you try now to describe really every flow, every process. So for example, in this example you have the picture delete flow. Like you can see in this wireframe, you can do a lot of things. You can change the names, change the state, save, close it again, but you can also change the picture. So only to draw the wireframe is not enough to giving the information how to what flows are in. And so if I describe the picture delete flow, I want first you click on the C button. Then if you clicked on the C button, then the pop-up goes on, and then if I see this, I can click on delete, and then when it's deleted, here you can see the picture is deleted. And then the last thing is you have to click on save, and when you click here on save, then you go back and you can see the picture is deleted. And now you can see what is the difference between if you did not describe this like that, but only put in the wireframes, because this is flow 1, but flow 2 could also be, you can see the results, flow 2 could also be you click on the picture, change the picture, click on delete, and by clicking on delete you go straight back to the result and the picture is deleted. And now you have two flows, and you have to decide which flow is better, to delete and then save, or to delete and go back. And this is the question, is what is the user, what is more convenient for the user? So if you think that your users in the beginning will have a lot of pictures and try in the uploading process to get to the real picture, so they will delete a lot, it's better to delete and then save, because I can select a picture, I don't like it, delete it, upload the next, and so on, instead of always going back and clicking again and so on. So but if you say that the users, no, they will upload the pictures and they will more frequently then delete the picture and upload something new, then it's much more better perhaps to go this process, delete and go back. So this is something that you have to decide what is more convenient. I think in this case you thought that it's more, I think, more convenient to have the delete and then save, because if you delete an old picture, you want to upload a new picture, so you delete, upload, save. It's much more better than to delete, go back, click, and then put in a new. So you can see how it's important. So like I said in our example for Framestar, like how we'll deal with the forgot password. So the first thing the user has to do is like click on a forget password. Then he will get a pop-up. And in the second thing, the user has then to upload a file by clicking on or dragging on the file. But you can see already, you can say, haha, this is not a complete workflow. There's missing something. And you're correct, because if it's really accurate, I should have shown in the first place how to download the secure code file, then how to click on forget, then how to upload it again, and then the next steps, like when you uploaded it, to enter the new password, confirm the password, click on submit, and then when you've done this is the result, and then you can log in again. So you can see a user that has forgotten his password, clicking on forgot password, upload the file that earlier downloaded, change the password, go back, and then enter the new password and then log in. And you can see this is one screen, but this one screen has multiple flows, and I describe one flow of the multiple flows. But I also, if I would show you everything, I've also described the start flow. I would also have to describe the login flow and so on, but I'm not doing this. But in this example, but you can only see how important it's not only to have the screens to describe them, but also to picture the flow. So now after we've done this, I only want to come to the additional features. And additional features, it's the process to drawing them and to describe them is the same, but what's the difference? I only have to say, think of one challenge. You have like in a site, you have two functionalities, and this email functionality is much more important than this filter functionality. So you don't want to describe the email and then the filter, because you perhaps want to go to the next thing, to the site 2, because there are more important things. So this filter, a feature, is less important than the others, and it would be not so good a user story to put it now in. So you want to describe it later. And also another challenge is perhaps you have one element that is like in site 1, site 2, site 3, site 4. So you don't want to go in every element and every description, like write 10 times or 20 times the same functionality. So what you're doing in the solution is easy. You only name it and link to a description later. So for example, here, if the main focus is on this table, and you don't want to talk about the filter here, you only say this is filter 1, and the detailed description you can find on slide X or chapter X, and every user and the developer will understand, aha, there will come later something, but I can put in perhaps some kind of placeholder and later, but now it's focused this, and later in the chapter then you make the standard thing, you draw a wireframe. If you click, this is the screen, these are the attributes, and you describe them as the same. But it's much better to start with the main functionalities, to only name the additional things, and later, when it's more appropriate, go to this, because that also helps you to build the things you will need. And in this case, you don't want that the developer start to build you a fancy feature, a fancy filter, before you even have the table, and then you don't have any money. You want to start with the main thing, build the table, and then later, if it's time, if it's resources, if you have money, you can build the other things. And so you already described at the end and not at the beginning. So now after we've done, and you can see here now we have a really good thing, because now we are only left to do the interface specification, and you have till now described for all the I mean, I didn't do the exercise, but all the wireframes. You could also not only describe them for one hardware, so for the laptop, but also how to look like on a mobile device, on a slip mobile device, on on a tablet and so on. So after you described all the functionalities, all the screens, all the flows for all the hardware, now it's finished, and now you talk about the interface specification. Like I said, it's more like about thinking you have two systems, and these two systems have in any case to share some information. This information can be like, perhaps you have a Google map, so you have Google and you want to integrate via the application, via the API, the map. So you have to think of all the information you have to take from this interface, Google states or climate data or price data, or perhaps you have an app with less features and you only want to share some features and have on your, like the user is coming making 100% of all the functions is getting through the laptop, but 20% via the app. And so you have to define what are the things that you want to share between the server and the app, in between the hardware of the user and the server in this moment. And the first thing you think about is what is the information, so what is the app sending and what is the server resending. You have to think what is the trigger, so perhaps the user, a trigger can be the user opens the app, and in this case you transfer or take some information, but also can be some time thing. You have an application on your app, and every time at 11 o'clock it's sending or checking something, and it could be a threshold. Perhaps if you say, if you have 12 mails on your, or 12 informations or 12 notes on your application, the handy, the application, the mobile device is making a synchronization with the server, so you can see it, different triggers. And also what is the transmission, so it can be in real time. The user is doing something, threshold is reached, and then in real time everything is done, or it can be in batch. So you can say the app is waiting every time with this thing, so the trigger is reached, but still it's waiting till 11 o'clock, and then all devices are sending everything on the same time to the server. So different approaches. You should also think about the the response, what is the server responding then, and also how to deal with errors. For example, a user wants to send you something but has no internet, then how is the reaction of the application, how is the error message, how you deal with it. So this, I don't have now an example for this. I think it's really good to understand, because I don't have in my idea now an external application or an interface, so I can skip this and come to the performance, because this is the most, now you're done like 90%, and the last 10% are this, because what is the performance now? The performance is only giving the developers moral indication on what to focus and what is important, because you have like something like loading site, saving time, download time, and you can define always a volume. So like I want a site to be loaded in 2 seconds and 3 seconds, and you have importance, and if you give the people importance and volume, the developers can adjust on them, like transfer time between interfaces. What are the users parallel on in the same time in average and in peak situations on your application? What are the requests that they're doing in this? And also what are the peak times, what are upload download sizes and data transfer volumes? So you can say, like someone could say, I want in everything to be the best. But like I said, you do not have unlimited resources. You have only limited resources. So it's better perhaps to think what are the most crucial things for my application, and say to the and brief the developers to focus on them and make them really good, instead of trying to make everything a little better and then lacking the advantages and the key issues, key functionalities you really need. So for example, in my application, loading time, 3 seconds for a page would be good. Saving time, it's not so important, because if somebody wants to save something, they are already perhaps ready to wait a little bit longer. 6 seconds, 10 seconds will be okay. Download time is also not so important. 60 seconds. I don't have transfer times. I think there will be average users 3. I don't know how many requests, and then the peak times 5. But also, like I said here, you can see it's important that in average, and it's middle important that the application is able to handle 3 users, and that's okay. If it cannot handle 5, it's also okay, because I think the chances are that in 365 days, that and every day has 8 hours, that 5 users are really in the same time on the same application. Think like 1 to 10,000. So it's not it's not a good business decision to put a lot of effort here in to optimize it, although this is something that will come with a probability of 1 to 10,000. So I will not invest in this, but invest in this, and more features perhaps, and that's much more important. And later, when I really see, oh, there are 20, 30, 100 users, and now I have a problem with this, then I can invest again and decide if I want to make this better or not better. So in the end, I only want to have to discuss you with the test cases. Why? Because, like I said, you will use these requirements and give it to some developers, and the developers can be perhaps a service provider, some external company that will do it for a price. And then when you define the test case, it will have an impact on the price they will charge you for your application. For example, if you, and also on the contract, if you are the one who is testing, then it can be cheaper, but you can oversee some things, and it has some contractual things, because they would say, why, I give you the implementation, you were in charge, the application, you were in charge to test it, you tested everything, you said it's okay, and then now 2 years later you say you didn't test this and this is broken, so you have a problem. So you can see how important it is to if you want to test it, if you want to save some money, then check the contracts, that even if you check it and do not see something now in the beginning, but later, that you can still go back and say, you made a mistake here, please repair it. You can also let the service provider test it. In this case, it will be much more expensive, but it's much more easier, because you only say in the contract, then I expect a fully functional application, and if that 1 year I see that there's something not working, it's still your fault, because you had to test it and check it. So you can see that this is something different. And also you can think about test optimization. This is something interesting, because it will lower you it will, like, test optimization will make every feature a little bit more expensive, but you have to think about it. If you test one feature and you have the first sprint and the first features, and you test as okay, and then the next feature comes with new features, the next sprint with new features, you always have to retest the old one, because always it can happen that in the new sprint something of the old stuff you already tested has broken again. So you can see with every sprint you have to test more and more and more, and to avoid this accumulation of more and more testing, you can say, okay, I will increase my costs for development, but therefore have less testing when new features, new sprints are delivered. Also, what's important you have to think about is what are the major processes that you want really to good test, and what are not so important processes. Why? Because you have different level of testing. You have, like, the first test is like basic test, positive test. That means you test if every button is really working, and that's the most easiest test, because you only have to click for everything through and check is everything really working, and it's okay. But also you have workload test. Like I said, you set some performance things and you want to test it. So is my application really working if 1 million users are there? But perhaps you don't want to check this for every process, because there's some process you say this is important and other processes that are not important. For example, in an online shop, you don't want to test if it's really important, if it's really possible to change a picture if 1 million people are trying to change a picture. I mean, if it's not working, what the hell? So it's stopping and somebody can upload the picture later. But for an online shop, to be able to process 1 million orders in one time is much more crucial. And also what you have is like negative tests. That means like there are some things you want to avoid in your application, and you can also test it. For example, if you upload a picture, you want perhaps to avoid that people are uploading pictures with 120 megabyte size. So you test if really your application is denying pictures that are bigger than 120. So this is not only like a functionality, but you're all testing the negative cases. Is this really possible? Is it possible to have some fraud, for example, to enter like a zip code in an address that is not correct? So this is something that is not working. Like, you can enter a zip code, you can enter an address, but are they working together? This is something that perhaps an additional test you have to do additionally. So in my example, I would test everything alone. I will make no test optimization. I will test all processes equally, but I will only test basic and negative tests, see if everything works, and that's it, and that's my solution. So you can see how cool it is. Now, when you think of requirements, you think already of the mockups and make already, or in most cases, people make the mistakes, then they make wireframes, forget a lot of things, have to change them, then are really annoyed to change everything, and then they give up. So it's a better thing to start with the entities, process, screens, and when you know everything, then start with the mockups, with the wireframes for every site, because you already know what to put in, what buttons, fields you need, what text fields, and you can put it in and don't forget it. And so you will have less change and will less forget everything, and you will have a better requirement document that you can give a developer and get a really better estimation. And like I said in the end, never forget to check it against the concept. Is everything did you really write everything down, draw everything, describe everything, that it fits your goals, your goals, your strategy, and everything else? So before I end, I want to say, like I said, Dimension is really helping you with concepts. We're doing development, we're doing advertising, we've done a lot of development, a lot of concept work for big companies in Germany, taking their ideas, making concepts, requirements, documents, also implementing. We're a really good development in Serbia, developing different applications for front end, for apps, for mobile, but also really big applications, like if you don't want to handle anything with the Excel list anymore, come to us. We will develop you a new application that replaces your Excel. And also for startups, we're doing a lot of advertising for them, web pages, landing pages, pictures, flyers, everything that is necessary to advertise all of things. So we're doing this for 40 euro an hour, so you can count on us. Call us anytime, we will help you. Additional information is at dimension.de startup, and for 40 euro an hour we can build your application, your help to set up your startup, beginning of 1, 2, 5, 3,000 euros. It's really not a problem. So what is the thing we'll do next time? So after requirements, we will not start with the business case. And I know a lot of people will say, business case, why not first select a tender, get the costs, so see how much this will cost me, and then start the business case. I won't say I want to do this way, because I want with this business case already to define what I want to pay for something. What is my budget, and then go to a tender and say, this is my budget, I want to build this, and then to negotiate, but to get a number that's really out of proportion, and then to drive it back. So I take the concept, I take the requirements, I put them together, make a business case, and the business case, I know in most literature you find that the business case is more like a mixture of concept and the financial status, but we have divided it. Concept is really the strategic thing, and business case are really the numbers, is the costs, the revenues aspect, the profit for different years, starting with year 1 to year 10 or year 5, and perhaps in different scenarios, like ever you want to do this, and take this, and with this you can really define your own risk for loss, the potential of your whole application and your business, but also the financial background you need. And with this you can go to investors and banks and ask for investment and loans. And like I said, if you have this cost, you already know what to ask, and it's not surprisingly if you go to I mean, what happens a lot of time, you're giving somebody requirements, is saying this application costing 100,000 euros, and you're saying back, oh, I expect more like 10,000. So it's easier to go with this expectation, 20,000, 30,000, 10,000, and then strip perhaps back in the requirements, and already giving the service provider, the development company, the possibility to say, look, for 20,000 euros we can build this, but not this. So we will check what is a business case. So what is a business case? What is a business case? What for do we need a business case? What are the elements? And most important for a business case, how to handle information that we need but do not have. Because you will see in a business case, a lot of things, especially for revenue and costs, will be assumptions. So how much money do I need to win one customer? How much money will it cost me, and so on? you cannot get this data because your business is new. So the only thing you can do is work with some estimations, and I will give you some tips and tricks how to make these estimations and to make a really good business case, so you have some good founding understanding of your business case, of your financial revenues and costs, and all things in the next video of our series. So that's the end. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. You can contact us for further information, or if you want to help, if you want that we help you with your startup. And don't forget, you can download everything, all the presentations on Dimension.de. So thanks a lot for watching. I hope I see you next time. Bye, until next time.